Welcome to the InPowered Life podcast,
a space dedicated to spreading the message that you have the power within to create everything you seek.
So if you're ready to enroll in a new kind of higher learning, the kind that leads to true personal freedom, hang here with us.
We're your hosts, Rudi and Aniston, and this is InPowered Life. Welcome to the InPowered Life podcast. My name is Riekstins. I'm your host, and I'm really excited to bring to the InPowered Life stage today somebody that I had the pleasure of meeting a couple of months back. And when I met him, and we're going to talk about that, I immediately knew, sitting there having that conversation, this is a man that I want to feature on the show. The way that he shows up, how he dominates. Forget the fact that he is 6'5" and he is stacked if you are watching on YouTube, but his presence really exudes past him. In the initial conversation, which was initially a business conversation, he stops and tells me, my son is sitting in on this meeting and he's 14 years old and I'm teaching him the ropes, and it absolutely blew me away. Who he is, how he shows up. This is somebody who is kind, who is compassionate, who is caring, and is driven by purpose. He is an influencer, marketer, serial entrepreneur of 4 very big, thriving businesses. And more than that, he is also the host of the Right About Now podcast, which is the #1 business and marketing podcast on Apple. And I'm going to start off by just saying, welcome to the show, Ryan Alford. Thank you so much for joining us, brother.
Rudi, I consider you a friend, and I am honored to be here and can't wait to shed some, just do some talking, and I don't know. It's a pleasure and honor to be here.
Well, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and ask the question that I'm sure so many people are thinking. You have over 1 million downloads of the Right About Now show every single month. You have been ranking as the #1 podcast for marketing and business on Apple. And, you're the reigning champ 12 months or so, and you still haven't lost the title. And so that's a tremendous amount of pressure as somebody who hosts a show twice a week that is obviously creating impact out in the world. What people must be thinking is, when you want to start a podcast, you're worried no one's going to listen. You're worried, what are people going to think? And, for me, I just remember getting 40, 50, 60, 70 downloads and thinking, is it ever going to grow? Am I ever going to get my message out there? And so I imagine somebody listening to the introduction I just gave you and thinking, wow, what does it feel like to wake up in the morning knowing that 1 million people listen to what it is that you have to say every single month?
Yeah. I think maybe Rudi, I was kind of getting nervous while you were talking. I don't even get nervous about it. I'm just kidding. No, it's an honor. And look, it's 7 years in the making. It's an overnight success in 7 years. So, it's it doesn't happen overnight, but I do wake up, and I just sort of in the last few years, started to appreciate things more. And, I try not to overanalyze the data as much as I just try to show up and be myself. And, I've done a lot of soul searching recently about just being my authentic self, even in the midst of trying to deliver value to the audience. And I feel as the host of a show, and our downloads are spread out across audio, across social media, across YouTube, we have a very diverse audience for a business show across a lot of different platforms. And so I try to think about how I can impact and add value to what people do while being my true self, just being me. And I think, a lot of my, just by the nature of especially how things started and how things grow, your family and your friends and your people watching or listening. And, I think the biggest honor I can have is that none of those people have ever walked up to me and go, that doesn't seem like you on the show. They know that's me. And I think if what I'm sharing has value and it has retention and is impacting people in hopefully a positive way, then I'm here for it every day.
Well, I love what you're doing, and I love how you're doing it. I love how authentically you're doing it. And I'm not somebody who wants to bring somebody on the show because of the accolades that they've achieved. Yet, most times we're bringing people on that have achieved a certain measure of success, but that's selfishly just me being a high performance guy and wanting to exploit, for the better word, looking at what has somebody done and being able to duplicate what they've done so that other people can learn from them, gain from them, from what has been their life experience. I believe that success isn't about the individual. And I say that abundantly on the show. So when I look at your success and I look at the 1 million+ people that you reach, 12 million and more counting across all forms of social with your message, it always makes me wonder, like, what is your mission? What is your purpose? Because the show is just the vehicle that gets you to where you're going. And so I'm curious if you could tell me, as you have been very contemplative over the last few months, what do you think really is something that is near and dear to your heart, that you think now that you've reached this certain level, that by having people that listen to you, like you, follow you, trust you, that you have value and meaning to add into their lives to support them? What would be that one message that is really important to you?
Yeah. I think there's so much opportunity, like as Americans, especially, and this has sort of hit me lately, how lucky we are to live in this country and to be blessed to have the opportunities that we have. But I think, leveraging every day and every opportunity and maximizing, when I think about like my history, like in business, both on the show and the things that, like the way you teed it up, I'm going to kind of go around the bend to get back to where you're asking, Rudi. I'm a good Southern guy. That's what that is. That's what we do, but like my entire life and career has been built around seizing opportunity. And I was not always the world's, I've been in the ad agency business for 22 years. I was not the world's greatest junior account executive. Sorry. I can admit it now, but I was good enough and opportunist enough, like learned quickly, how the business worked, how things work. And I've often been, like, how do we maximize the potential of every opportunity? And if I can shed light on what it takes, the approach to do that, the mindset that it takes to do that, and have an impact on those people, then I feel like I'm doing my job and it's serving the purpose that I have. Now, I'm running businesses. There's monetary levers to what I do now. But if I'm not checking a few of those boxes, if I'm not teaching other people, what it takes to think, what it takes to show up and have consistency, the way you have to think about every opportunity. If I'm not doing some of those things, then I'm not feeling like I'm getting that box checked of purpose, of because I don't have to do this show. Like it's even, maybe even a misnomer amongst, it's like, this is not, I own other businesses. I've been successful on other things. So if I'm not checking the box of doing what I feel like is at the heartstrings of what I think could impact someone in business and marketing, in motivating them, then it's not going to check the box of purpose for me.
So a moment ago, you jumped over beautifully, but I caught it, your journey to getting to where you are today, to be qualified to have the #1 marketing and business podcast. And the reason why I keep bringing it back to that is because it's important for people to see the journey or the progression of where somebody is today. But as we love to say, you weren't always that way. I know you started in marketing. I know your journey was going through from being a junior account executive. You beautifully said that you weren't the best, but there was something about you that made you become the best, because I also know that you were promoted 7 times in 13 years. I know that you climbed the ranks. You ended up moving to New York City for the organization, opening up another flagship location. You ended up working with some of the biggest brands in the world. You've generated billions of dollars through marketing. Your greatest accolade is the single biggest TV ad campaign, which was Verizon's "Can You Hear Me Now?" And you were spearheading all of these incredible efforts to get you to where you are today. And so I want to go back and re-ask you the question slightly differently now that I've given the audience a little bit of context. You said that your mission or your purpose is to get people to maximize opportunity. Well, you maximize the opportunity of leaving college, getting into marketing, starting it as a junior executive, not being great, becoming the best, and then having all of these campaigns, accolades, launching iPhone, Samsung, all of these brands and products, and being responsible for largely driving the awareness and growth and sales of some of these brands. And then you left again and started your own business. And so my question really is, how do we maximize the opportunity that we have? Or better yet, how do we know that it's an opportunity that we have?
Yeah. Well, every situation is an opportunity. I'll say this, an opportunity to get the hell out or get the hell in. So sometimes running from something is better than running to it. So like, you got to just look how you look at it. But I will say this, Rudi, like, I think about like growing up and, I think number one, I have some mindset wiring that, DNA created from Marilyn and Steve Alford, that, makes every individual who they are. I have a proclivity to be risk tolerant, to try things, to not be scared of the boogeyman behind the corner, because I'm a daredevil or someone. I never jump out of a plane, but you have to, in a world where we're being taught and trained and tricked into fear, I am not one that lives in fear. And the mindset that it takes to leverage every opportunity to get it is to remove our own internal fears and our own internal inhibitions in what could happen and the negative side of every coin. There's a level of negativity. There's a level of self-deprecation and like self-doubt that's built into a lot of people that holds them back. And I think you have to learn to get kind of bridge that gap of thinking and realizing. I also realized a long time ago that you're going to be judged, critiqued, not liked, or not understood by people no matter what you do. And so if you can get out of the way of like putting that to the side and realizing that that's going to happen regardless of whether you do what you think you should or do what you don't think you should, you can go just about wherever you want to go. Because I'll say this, the biggest holdup for most people taking advantage of opportunity starts in the mind. And they think it's, this is why I love your show. It's the InPowered Life. Inside, baby. It's inside you. It's not, we want to go outside and blame or talk about all of these things, but it starts right here. It starts right here, and I think I've like through a lot of trials and tribulations and maybe inhibitions that maybe I naturally am geared towards, have seized opportunities because I'm just not going to let myself get in the way of those opportunities. And I think, I just want to say I was blessed to know my passion early, to be a marketing major at Clemson, to know that, okay, I'm a marketer some way, shape, or form. And then, but at a certain point, you have to flip the switch and realize, okay, how am I going to maximize? Okay, I found what I'm good at quicker than most people. I got into the agency world at a young career age. But then at some point, though, I had to flip the switch to go, do I want to be good or do I want to be great? Do I want to do what everyone else is doing and follow the line? Or do I want to push the needle a little bit and ask for promotions, get invited to meetings, put my nose in things and shit that I did not have any business being in with large brands, and not being afraid if 1 minute I sounded like the stupid country kid in the back with an idea, or it was the greatest idea of the day. And there were moments of both of those things. But the bravery and courage that it took to do it generated more respect than maybe the ideas themselves at certain times. And I think you have to get to that mindset to sort of cross the divide of potential and opportunity.
You see, you said that you were born with this innate ability and that it was a gift given to you through your parents. But I know a little bit of your story and I know a little bit of your upbringing. And I know that you came from very humble beginnings and that your parents didn't necessarily want, and I'm going to clarify, they didn't outwardly drive to create success at the level that you've driven to create success. I also know that when you went to school that you were very similar to me, right? You just showed up. You didn't necessarily show up to do school. Your body was there, but you weren't present. You didn't really pay attention. You just made it through Clemson, not because you weren't smart. And everybody can already tell you're wicked smart just through how you phrase what you're saying, how you show up. But if we looked at just your score record, it was like you just barely were present. And yet you've got all this external evidence saying, I came from humble beginnings. You can get by with very little. We don't necessarily have to drive and have a lot. But something was different in you that said, I want to create more. And then you set it up by achieving this incredible career where most people would say, this is where I'm going to put my flag and I'm going to stay here. And the reason I ask this question, if people go back and listen to other episodes, when I'm interviewing somebody that has pivoted out of corporate America, driving a tremendous level of success, I always love to ask the question, what made you leave? How did you create more? Why would you risk that? Because I'm a high performance guy that speaks to people in that environment all the time. And so many people say to me, I have a dream, a goal, a desire, I want to do something. It's not where I'm at, but there's something that holds them back. And so if you were going to be supporting somebody that has just heard everything up until now, what would be the advice you would give them if they were contemplating not having a good life, wanting a great life, not settling for good, going for great? What would be the thing that you would encourage them to do? Because I don't believe that you're born with it. I think it's something that you hone over time.
Yeah. And I think you're right. But I do think at a certain point, we all make the decision. Like I posted on social media today on like Threads. I put, you either find a way or you find an excuse. You either find a way or you find an excuse. And we live in self-fulfilling prophecies. We create what we think what we want, and we do what we want. And, whether you believe in God, whether you don't, we were given innate ability to make the decisions with, no intervention. Like we get to decide every day what we want to do. And at some point, you have every tool available to you today. You have social media, you have podcasting, you have the ability to be and be known, to share, to get involved, to do things. And I don't want to pretend that everyone has the same advantages, but I grew up in a tract neighborhood in freaking Easley, South Carolina, with my dad and my mom making a combined household income of $20,000. So if anybody had some excuses, I'm not saying I had the worst situation, but nobody's had more excuses than me, baby. Like to be nothing, to be average. But at some point, and I think I was 22 years old, you have to wake up and decide, I don't want average. I don't want my time to be controlled by others. I don't want to settle. And that's really what we're talking about, settling. Like, I don't want to settle for what is expected. I want more. And I don't know when that exact moment happens and how people can, how do people do that? You have to get up and look in the mirror and go get it. You have to create the discipline, the standards, and the ways with which to get there. It's no different than my podcast. The first 3 years, 100 people listened. And then, I didn't do that much social media. Then we did social media. Then you leveraged on. And then I went on other shows. And we tried every trick in the book and but you have to have discipline and do it every week, and show up and try to get better and get bigger guests and have a natural curiosity for what it takes to go to the next level. We don't do enough thinking about thinking anymore in this world. Like, like, okay, take a step back. What do I want to happen? What are the steps to get there? What are the bridges that I need to cross or that I need to mend with which to take advantage of these things? Because look, I'll tell you this, what social media, podcasting, and all these mediums and all these things have allowed for you to create these bridges, to leverage influence of others, to build your own, to leverage borrowed interest from things to then build. So every opportunity is there. Every bridge can be built, but you have to look in the mirror and decide you want it, because you either find a way or you find an excuse, period.
I think you named the podcast episode right there, and it's so powerful. I wish I'd seen that post before we jumped on to record today. You know, I want to touch on something you've just said for a moment, because we're talking about obviously taking advantage of opportunities and not making excuses, but taking action, staying curious. And I love that you insert asking questions. What do I need to do? What is the bridge I have to build? Because in asking questions, we open the mind to more information. We open the mind to more information. We have more possibility. We have more possibility. We can take more action. And so we create the ability to move forward. Whereas most people don't have what they want because they get stuck in procrastination, right? They overthink of what it is that they're going to do instead of just taking action. And so you are a man that takes action. You're an ideas man. You're somebody who moves forward, and you move forward very quickly. You run 4 companies. You're hugely successful. To put it into context, you know, you have an 8-figure company. And so if we just look at how well you're doing, I don't want people to turn around and say, well, Ryan did that. Well, that was easy for Ryan because, you know, Ryan went to Clemson. Ryan had a marketing background. Ryan did these things. I want to talk about failure for a second, because so many people get caught up in the trap of, I don't want to fail. And your success story looks like you never failed. And you know, I know a story of you starting what is today a massive business, but you fell on your face and you lost $1 million in the process. And I don't bring it up because I want to belittle the success you have today. I want to humanize you a little for the people that are listening thinking, well, I don't have an 8-figure company. I'm not making tens of millions of dollars. I don't have 4 booming businesses. I work in a job and I want to have a better life, and I want to have greatness. What does failure mean to you, and how did it support you in becoming who you are today?
Yeah. I mean, I failed more than, you know, I don't know. I fail at team building. I fail at hiring people. Like, I fail at managing them every day. Believe me, it's not all, rosy. But I also built a tent of, I don't know, foundation to fall on a little bit, thankfully. But it's like, but I did, you know, I came out of working the ad agency business, had done a lot of the accolades and things that you had said. And just to be clear, none of it alone, hundreds of people working on some of those businesses. I was certainly considered myself a linchpin in this success, but I also was one of hundreds or thousands with some of those campaigns and things that it took to bring that stuff to life. Some of these things, the amount of resource that it takes to make some of these most iconic moments happen is unreal. And so I was just blessed to be a part of a large team, and, you know, and was stick my nose in it, so to speak. And I think, you know, but came out of New York and thought I was going to, you know, be the next big car entrepreneur, and had this, keep it simple. It was a little different, but essentially Carvana's idea before Carvana. This was 2013. And, you know, like, thought, the marketing was great. Like, I knew how to do the marketing. We had no lack of like leads and attention, but on a smaller scale. But then the execution, operations, how dirty the car business is even to this day, especially used cars and the dealer networks. And not every dealer, I'm not calling dealers dirty, but it's just a shady business. It was, especially 10 years ago plus, and combined with my naivety and operational failure. And so, you know, turned, you know, some investments and things into a big goose egg, you know, and fell flat on my face and had to sort of like regroup and go, all right, what do I want to do with my life? What do I want to be? What I want to, you know, like, but I had sort of abandoned, and I mean, there's a lesson to be learned here. One, the failures of, okay, someone that had been successful, promoted all these times, done all these things, and felt Teflon to a degree, falls right on their face in their first kind of venture out of the gate. It taught me some things of like, I'm a firm believer in some ways of not the whole riches in the ditches. I believe it. I do believe it. But like, I don't like it because I don't want to like limit my impact sometimes, probably to my own fault. But like, I do believe there's truth in sticking to the lane, and I got out of, pun intended with the car business, out of the lane that I knew best and, into oncoming headway traffic. And it was a crash and burn moment. Luckily, no fatalities, though I definitely felt like it at times that it was, because you start to, you question yourself and your judgment. And again, I think I was born with confidence that might be construed as arrogance at times, though it's really not. It's more, and then I don't really care what you think. It's not because I'm trying to be arrogant. It's more like I'm trying to do what's best for me and my family, that it's an arrogance of like what I really care what you think. And there's a really fine line there. I think like arrogance requires that someone like care what someone else thinks. And that's not what it is. But let me just tell you, I mean, it was all like, I didn't lose everything, but I lost enough that it was a real pinnacle moment for like facing the reality that, number one, success is not guaranteed no matter how driven you are. And that there are limits to knowing what you know and sticking to what you do best and leveraging around that instead of getting too far outside of, your specialization. And so, and even running the businesses now, man, it's like, I'm not Teflon to anything. It's like, I get surprised daily by people, places, and things.
So I love to mention stories like yours because too many people get caught up in just the success and they don't see that what was the journey that qualified you. We talk about in the Powered Life podcast that every moment is preparing you for the person that you get to become, for the next moment that's going to unfold. And for you, you went into a marketing background. You drove tremendous success. You then left. You went into a completely different business, brought a portion of your skills with it, but it ultimately didn't work. So many people would turn around and they'd go back to their corporate job. They'd go back and find stability and structure. And yet you continue to find different ventures and you're in very different businesses. And each one of them are relatively unique as the way you are approaching business. And so you come across to me as somebody that is an ideas person. And so I have a twofold question. The first is, how do you not get caught up? And you said that you just feel like you're really confident and you have the ability to take steps. And I want to clarify because I know you. For anyone that's listening, when you're referring to confidence, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's confidence in your ability to take action, confidence in your ability to show up, and not necessarily just in confidence that it's going to work or confidence or arrogance that, well, you're just going to throw caution to the wind. And so it's you making that step. And so I would love for you to be able to support our audience in not only them thinking, okay, if I have had a failure or if it doesn't work, that's somehow preparing me for the next step. But the second part of this that I'm really dabbling with is that you're somebody that comes up with a tremendous amount of ideas. You seem to be somebody that is connected to himself, and every now and again you'll receive inspiration and then you take action on that inspiration. And I'm selfishly just dying to know, how do you discern whether that is something you need to act on or not? Is there a tool, a technique? Is there a conversation you have? What is the process where you decide, wow, you know what, this harebrained idea, I think this is it. Like, how do you juggle that?
Yeah. Their names are Nicole and Brianna. I'm joking. Brianna's new on my team and she'll be helping me with some of that. But I will say, look, if I acted on every idea, I'd probably own 47 companies. So I think you have to, I don't know. I think sometimes there's there's no perfect formula to that answer, by the way. But I do think, again, I guess the proof would be in the pudding that, if I own 4 companies, which I do, like there would be 47 of them if I acted, because I think, one, I do think diversification in 2024 is necessary. So like if I'm always listening, like for business and stuff like that, diversification is very important, and to have an act upon that. I think I'm struggling, Rudi, remembering the first question because I got so enamored in answering the second. What was the first part of that?
So just in being able to take action, you've answered this question a number of times, but I really like to clarify that if somebody has already had a failure or a setback, but you've just come up with some inspiration to be able to move forward, how are you not allowing your past to hold you back from continuing to create the greatness that you want?
Yeah. I think, and I think I've said this a few times, and I actually said it like last weekend, but I like to say it because, hopefully it like shows my personality a little bit, but like no one has bigger pity parties than me. Like, I mean, I have clowns, balloons, streamers. I invite all the negative patsies over for a big pity party for like one day. So like I get like, man, like I am, having a beer and down in the dumps for like a day. But as someone that believes in action and someone that believes in execution, like I immediately kind of back on the horse after that day. And here's what I think helps, Rudi. And when there's this fine line, like when you start to build businesses and you grow teams between, being in the business, working on the business, being in execution versus management. But I am a person of action. I also like to do things. So like I can run a camera. I can jump in editing software. I know social media and can post to every platform. I know how to use TikTok. I am a practitioner. And a man of action. So I can piece things together because I like to learn how things work. And I'm not always the best, by the way. I hire a lot best. Sawyer, our producer, is the best in the business because he could do a lot of stuff 1,000 times better than me. And I trust him and he's great. But I can do things. I can teach myself and I'm not scared to. So like, I think there becomes this misperception. And then like some people would say, well, you got to hire people. You got to put people around you because like if you're working too much in it, like all those things. So there's this, but I do think the difference in what separates maybe the average person and someone that can kind of go after it and get into it is like, you got to know how to execute, baby. Like we can all get in a room and talk about a bunch of big ideas and we can all like, I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, I'm a good idea guy, but like, you got to go do it. Like, and you got to roll up the sleeves and do your part and, bring on the team and motivate them and all that. And, my biggest failure sometimes is just getting the motivation and the buy-in. Like, because I know how to get to the promised land, but sometimes you got to have the team and everybody else that are bought in and like getting them to come with you because you can only do so much. But I do think my ability to sort of turn the lever to bring it back to what you're saying, Rudi, from failure to success to the next thing is I can go get on the bike, baby. I'll pedal. And I just am not scared to do that. And I think until maybe Jeff Bezos level, but like, I think the good from the great from the ability to flip is who's faking it and who's making it. Because I'll go jump on the bike, baby.
So I want to pivot slightly only because I know we're coming up on time and I really want to bring your expertise full circle because I know that there's so many people that are listening to this podcast that are aspiring to create their own podcast. And you have managed to leverage podcasting to build yourself, your reputation, and then you've used that to build a brand around you as you've continued to build these 4 companies. Where do you see podcasting going? And if you could tell us a little bit about the Radcast, which I'm going to add in there, which is unsolicited from you, one of the fastest growing podcasting networks. You've got to jump on board if you're listening. Tell us a little bit about what it is that you're doing and how people can learn more from you.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, I'll give you a couple data points. 18 to 34-year-olds, the fastest growing medium is podcasting. that they watch for education and entertainment, watch or listen. And that's funny. That's kind of almost like a Freudian slip there. The watch or listen is because, a lot of people, the fastest growing platform for discovery is like YouTube and Spotify and Apple. Those are the three fastest growing mediums. And there's the video component on YouTube and Spotify now. And so, and especially for that like 18 to 34 demo. And so more 18 to 34 year olds listen and watch podcasts than they do watch TV. 18 to 34 year olds are the future of the country. Like that's not an opinion. It's just reality of age and growth. And so the bell curve for this medium is just on the rise. And, like it's not even at the middle of the bell curve. And so it's proven by every data point. It's the most trusted medium for advertisers and for consumers of any platform. So consumers trust the platform. Advertisers trust the platform. It's growing amongst 18 to 34 year olds. And you have this intersection of audio and video sort of taking place with the medium. And so all the data and everything supports the medium as a future for education and entertainment, the two kind of forms for content. You have a world that has never been more aware that they're being marketed to. And so commercials and TV ads in the old school form of doing advertising isn't working as effectively. And so you have a trusted medium that consumers like. You have an ability to be authentic and storytell and to educate and entertain. And you have a core target audience that is growing and not reducing. And so that's why I am high on podcasting as a medium with which to grow audience and to spend time and to develop authority for people, businesses, etc. And so we are helping shows, come into that funnel, into the medium. They might be existing or thinking of starting businesses or people, and using what we've seen done and leveraged. And look, I'll say this, like we've created a number one show that has staying power, and we have the playbook for that, but the playbook's changing daily, and we're testing. And I mean, I'm on half my time every week where he's like calls on platforms or technology or, now starting to get, some conferences that I'm booked in the fall is like learning because it's changing and it's growing, the way to promote the show, the way to advertise and find more audience. And like there's the buy side, the sell side, and all these things. And so you kind of get like, I'm sort of the champion of the team, but I'm out there sort of like learning, absorbing, trying to get better selfishly for my own show, but now to help the other shows on the network and to attract more shows and more people to take advantage of what is an incredible opportunity.
Well, I just want to say, as an endorsement from Anderson and I, who happen to be part of Radcast's network, we believed that if we had a message and a voice, that if it was meant to be, it would grow and people would hear it. And I want anyone that's listening to this that has ever thought that it's not how podcasting works. You need to understand, how do you leverage the podcast? How do you move the levers so that you can get your message out into the world? Because if you have a profound message, which I believe everybody does, but if nobody's going to hear that message, then, you're doing everyone a disservice. And so I highly recommend that you look into different areas and or platforms. I'm just going to tell you, my trust and confidence is in with you, Ryan. And so I appreciate you and what your team are doing for us every single day. Our reach, our podcast, our viewership has just gone through the roof, and it's 100% because you've put a spotlight on the message that we get to share out in the world. And so I'm grateful that you were able to come and join us on the podcast today. Where can people find you? Where can they learn a little bit more about not only your show, your businesses, but also if anyone's interested in joining Radcast or learning more?
Yeah. My most active platform is Instagram. I'm at Ryan Alford. I mean, you see it but went the wrong way right there on the screen. If you're watching, hey, if you're listening, you need to go watch and subscribe to Rudi's YouTube channel, and is on Spotify on the video side, all those things. So go watch Rudi. He's much prettier than most podcast guests too. He's a good looking guy. He's got that accent, baby. He's got one of the best, fastest growing shows on the network. So you need to keep subscribing and listening. But with that said, Ryan Alford on Instagram is the best way to find me. You got all the links there, the radcastnetwork.com, and look, I reply to my DMs. I get 1,000 a week, but I reply to every one of them. I'm accessible, you can find me.
Well, we greatly appreciate you coming out on the show. We always believe that every single person's journey has value and meaning. And by you sharing what has been your journey, giving some people encouragement or excitement to be able to take steps in their life. I know the number one thing that holds people back is the fear of failure. And I wanted to use the story of your life to show people failure is a stepping stone to just greater success, and greater success. And for somebody that's listening to this that has a dream or a goal or desire, and if you just took committed action, like what we've heard about today, you could be reaching 1 million people a month. You could be reaching 12 million people a year. You could be reaching 100 million. And it all just starts with you getting an idea, taking the idea and putting that idea into action and not making excuses for your inability to take them and rather just taking the committed action. Thank you so much for joining us on the Empowered Life podcast. I appreciate you, Ryan. To everybody that's listening, thank you. We'll love you. And we'll catch you in the next episode of the Empowered Life.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. And we would love your support in leaving us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to check the show notes for more information on how you can find us online and on Instagram. Now go create an amazing day for yourself, and we'll see you again soon.